The following program is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. The Tackle Box Podcast.
You can murder a hater, but you can't murder hate.
And I think you are judging us by the state of your own mind.
Dollars bring dignity.
He certainly has also sparked controversy with many of his views in the past.
If you have hate in your heart, let it out.
I hate you.
I'd rather die than be a slave.
The only difference between us is the way we think.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips, ABC News.
He was speaking at this outdoor event in a courtyard. The shot rings out. The entire crowd goes scattering.
Yes, he certainly has also sparked controversy with many of his views in the past, but he has a massive following.
Welcome back to the Tackle Box Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Edwards. In this episode, I'm talking about how stories get told, who gets to tell them, and how those narratives shape identity, power, and culture. From uprisings in Puerto Rico to history of pigs in America, we'll connect the dots between history, food, and the way the media frames our world. Because at the end of the day, mass media isn't about headlines. It's about control, profit, and the stories we inherit. Let's start with a story that shows how the media can erase or distort history. The Jayuya Uprising of 1950 was a defining moment in Puerto Rico's fight for independence, yet most Americans have never even heard of it. The media of the time framed it as a rebellion to be crushed, not a cry for freedom. So, let's revisit Jayuya and look at how the narrative was shaped and what that tells us about the relationship between power and the press. Come on.
Commence au festival.
November 1st, 1950. President Harry Truman is staying at Blair House while the White House is under renovation. Out of nowhere, two Puerto Rican nationalists, Oscar Collazo and Gracilio Terrasola, approach with pistols drawn. Shots erupt. Terrasola fatally wounds a White House officer before being killed himself. Collazo survives, but the message is unmistakable. Puerto Rico's independence movement is willing to risk everything to be heard. That same week, back on the island, the Jayuya Uprising was unfolding. In the mountain town of Jayuya, national leader Blanca Canales raised a Puerto Rican flag and declared the island a free republic. For a brief moment, Jayuya wasn't just a town. It was the capital of an independent Puerto Rico. But the rebellion was met with overwhelming force. U.S. planes bombed the town, artillery shelled its streets, and within days, the uprising was crushed. 16 nationalists, along with police and civilians, were killed. The town was left scarred, but the symbolism endured. Jayuya became a rallying cry, proof that independence wasn't just an idea. It was something people were willing to fight and die for. Fast forward 4 years to March 1st, 1954. Congress is in session. Suddenly, 4 Puerto Rican nationalists, Lolita Lebrón, Rafael Cancel Miranda, Irving Flores, and Andres Figueroa Cordero, stand up in the visitors' gallery. They unfurl a Puerto Rican flag, shout, "Viva Puerto Rico Libre," and open fire. 5 congressmen are wounded. No one dies, but once again, the world is forced to pay attention. Taken together, these events weren't random acts of violence. They were part of a larger struggle, a desperate attempt to make Puerto Rico's colonial status visible to the world. The Jayuya Uprising, the Truman assassination attempt, and the house shooting all carried the same message: independence at any cost. And while the rebellions were crushed, their legacy lives on as a reminder of the sacrifices made in the fight for freedom and the lengths government will go to maintain control. You're listening to the Tackle Box Podcast.
In a matter of seconds, a country music festival turned tragic, a storm of gunfire raining down upon an innocent crowd.
He was shooting everybody, and there was dead people everywhere, and I don't even know what was happening.
We have an active shooter,
And that brings us to the bigger picture. If uprisings like Jayuya can be minimized or rewritten, what does that say about the role of mass media in America today? The truth is, the media has always been less about public service and more about profit, shaping identity, defining who matters and who gets erased. Let's break down how that plays out in our culture right now. White on white violence is everywhere. Mass shootings, domestic abuse, even attempted assassinations. Yet you rarely hear it framed that way in mainstream media. White identity was once the currency of supremacy, but in the 21st century, that currency is losing value. America is browning. Corporations chase the brown dollar, and the media, always chasing profit, reflects that shift. So now, many self-identified white folks feel shaken. They scapegoat the media for society's ills, especially racism. But the truth is, white identity and social toxicity have always been linked. It's just more obvious now. I learned this firsthand working in a radio station's research department. My job was to call listeners back after they requested songs, play snippets, and ask what they thought. One day, my boss told me to start with a question: what race and gender are you? He explained the target audience wasn't the majority of callers. The majority of callers were mostly black girls. It was teenage white girls ages 13 to 18 who were the target. That's who sponsors wanted feedback from. That's who advertisers believed could move their product. That's how the media works. It's not a public service. It's a business, a corporate machine with one goal: control how you think by chasing who spins. For years, I couldn't understand why conservatives claimed mainstream media was racist. Black folks had been saying that for decades, and conservatives scoffed. But now, suddenly, they agree. Except, they don't mean white supremacy. They mean anti-white sentiment. I was stunned. Because last time I checked, white folks owned, managed, and produced almost all of mainstream media. Then I was corrected. Someone said, no, it's Jewish people who run it. You know that trope. So I thought, okay, is this Jewish supremacy? But if those Jewish executives don't practice Judaism or Jewish culture, wouldn't they just be presumed white? Apparently not, at least not by conservatives. This is the conspiracy that fueled Tiki Torch marches in Charlottesville. The idea that Jewish people are orchestrating a campaign to erase white identity and replace it with brown faces. Absurd. But it's not confined to the dark corners of the internet anymore. At one time in America, racism was religion, a way of life. Today, it's supposedly taboo, yet unapologetic racists make headlines every week. You've never seen so much news about racism in your life until now. Not because the media has gone crazy, but because social media and smartphones have made visible what people of color have been saying since Dr. King was assassinated. King was killed because his courage had earned the respect of the majority, and that respect threatened white supremacist culture. That fear still lingers today, the fear that America's foundation will crumble under the weight of demographic change. Many white Americans fear losing a privilege they can't even describe, but everyone else can see on video. The future holds nothing but confrontation. Some whisper about another civil war, but unlike the first one, there won't be a 54th Regiment to sacrifice itself for victory. The right to free America's consciousness from racism has always been and still is a fight among white Americans themselves. And here's the irony. White identity has become so controversial that people fear even mentioning it online. They invent coded language to talk around it. Not me. I won't do that. I'd rather be silent than speak in code. That's why when pundits like Tucker Carlson talk about legacy Americans, I call it what it is, white people. And if you look up legacy as an adjective, it means something outdated, superseded, but still lingering because it's hard to replace. And that's the truth about white identity in America. It's outdated, it's superseded, but it's still lingering. You're listening to the Tackle Box Podcast.
Millions of Americans headed outside to take a look at the first total solar eclipse visible in mainland America since 1979. Even the president saw it, but in a move that is not a complete surprise, he looked directly at the sun without any glasses. Perhaps the most impressive thing any president's ever done.
We've talked about uprisings and media narratives, but let's shift gears to something that seems far more ordinary. Food. Even what we eat carries stories about power, migration, and identity. Take the pig, for example. Its journey across continents and into American kitchens isn't just about cuisine. It's about how culture spreads, adapts, and gets framed over time. And just like the media, these stories of origin shape how we see ourselves today. Every Sunday, I host a family dinner. All of my boys come through. Those dinners are more than just meals. They're traditions, little rituals that remind us of who we are and where we come from. They're also the spark behind many of these segments. Tomorrow, I'm making chili rubbed pulled pork. And that got me thinking, not just about the recipe, but about the pig itself. How did pigs even get here in the first place? Here's something most people don't realize. Pigs are not native to the Americas. When Columbus set sail from Spain in 1493, Queen Isabella insisted he bring pigs along. At the time, pigs were already a cornerstone of European diets, and their history stretched back even further. The first domesticated pigs came from China thousands of years earlier. Through trade, the Romans adopted them, spreading pork across their empire. That's how pigs became a staple in Spain, and eventually how they made their way to the Caribbean. Columbus introduced pigs to what is now Cuba, but it was Hernando de Soto who truly earned the title Father of the American Pork Industry. In 1539, he landed in Tampa Bay with just 13 pigs. From that small herd, the animals multiplied, roaming and rooting their way across the continent. Now think about that for a second. 13 pigs in Florida became the foundation of a food tradition that now stretches from Carolina pulled pork to Texas brisket, from backyard barbecues to Sunday dinners like mine. But pigs weren't just food. They were survival. They were wealth. Colonizers relied on them to sustain themselves in unfamiliar lands. And over time, pigs became woven into the cultural fabric of America itself. From indigenous communities who adapted pork into their diets, to enslaved Africans who transformed scraps into soul food staples, to immigrants who brought their own flavors to barbecue pits, the pig became more than livestock. It became a symbol of resilience, adaptation, and identity. So when I serve pulled pork at my table, it's not just dinner. It's a story that began centuries ago, crossing oceans, empires, and cultures. And somehow, it ends up right here on a Sunday night with my family gathered around. You're listening to the Tackle Box Podcast. So today we tackled 3 threads: the Jayuya Uprising, the machinery of mass media, and the story of pigs in America. At first glance, they might seem unrelated, but here's the connection. The media decides which stories get amplified, which identities get validated, and which histories get buried. Whether it's a rebellion silenced, a culture commodified, or a tradition reframed, mass media is the lens through which power tells its story. And if we don't question that lens, we risk mistaking propaganda for truth. Thank you for listening to the Tackle Box Podcast. This episode was written, narrated, produced, scored, and mixed by Eric Edwards, that's me. Special acknowledgement to Aaron Glover and Ula Pinion for their writing contributions. This show is presented by Truth and Substance. And listen, the only difference between us is the way we think. You're listening to the Tackle Box Podcast.